Mister.
Hey everyone, Mr. MC here. This is a guide for round 5 of the manufacturer series. Let's get this started. For this first turn, you're going to look for a line that goes across the track. I'll highlight it right here with an arrow, so right before you cross it, you're going to start to apply the brakes. Brake in a straight line, turn when the curb on the right ends. Slowly ease off of the braking to hit the apex, and then slowly start to apply the throttle. Try to be careful when you're exiting the turn to make sure that the car doesn't want to lose control. This section right here can be taken flat out, but for the next braking zone, you're going to start to brake when the curb on the right starts. Brake hard for a moment, then ease off of the braking as you enter the turn and hit the apex. When you hit it, slowly start to accelerate, don't accelerate too soon, and then you'll start to brake before the orange barrier on the left starts. Try to take advantage of the curb right here and bring yourself to the left, and then very carefully go through this turn right here. Use a little bit of throttle, don't take too much advantage of the curb, and when your car is straightened out, that's when you can start to fully accelerate. Alright, that's all for the lap guide, and let's go ahead and quickly talk about strategy. As for strategy, you're going to pit once. Let's say if you start on racing medium tires, make sure you switch on over to racing hard when you go to the pit stop, and vice versa, because the required tires are both racing medium and hard tires, so you need to equip those tires at least once to avoid getting the 20-second penalty. You're also going to need to refuel, so try to save up some fuel along the way. You can adjust the fuel mapping for the last few turns as you don't need as much power. Just make sure you bring it back to full power, so fuel map 1, when you're about to hit the main straight. Something that you need to consider is your driving style, because if you drive really aggressively, especially if you're on racing medium tires, then you might need to consider pitting a bit earlier. So the thing is that I was considering pitting on lap 15 for this race, but because I was driving aggressively and I was also sliding around, the right tires ended up getting worn faster than I would have liked it to. So because of that, I'm going to need to pit at the end of lap 12. Now this is where it gets a little confusing. So when it comes to this specific race, you're going to need to consider how much fuel you're using, and I'm talking about how much percentage of fuel you're using per lap. When you look at the fuel map settings, you can see on the very bottom right hand of the screen the fuel percentage number. So this is what you're going to need to do a couple practice races and take a look and see how much percentage fuel you are using. Do like 2 or 3 laps, and that way you can get a good idea of how much fuel percentage you are using. That way you can kind of determine when you should pit, and when you go to the pit stop, how much percentage of fuel you'll need to be at to complete the race. Because the thing is that when I was doing this practice race, the remaining laps, for some reason and for some people, it was a bit misleading, as it was telling them that they needed this many laps to complete it, but they ended up running out of fuel before they completed that many laps. So for this case, take a look at the fuel percentage. For me, I'm using 4 to 6% of fuel, and that way I can determine, okay, when I pit at the end of lap 12, let's say, I'm going to need to get this much percentage of fuel in my tank, that way I can finish the race. I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but I think that this is something that people need to know before they enter this race. But other than that, try to fuel save where you can, and that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and go to the summary. Alright, so for the summary, fuel save where you can. The last couple turns is a really great place to do that. Short shift when you can. Use racing medium and hard tires during your race to satisfy the requirement. Try to think about your driving style, as that can determine when you will need to pit, especially when you're on racing medium tires. And last but not least, when it comes to fuel, try to analyze it by the fuel percentage. You're going to want to know how much fuel percentage you are using per lap. That way you can determine how much fuel you will be at when you enter the pit stop, which also means that you're going to want to have an idea of what lap you're going to want to pit on. When you enter the pit stop, you should have an idea, or at least hopefully have an idea, of how much percentage of fuel you need to be at to successfully complete the race and not run out of fuel. But anyways, that is all for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it helpful. Now commentary version is coming up. But anyways, this is Mr. MCA wishing you a good race, and I'll see you in the next video.